Just under a year ago, I made a video about tradies, and you guys seemed to enjoy it. We went through all the important parts of being a tradie, such as printing money, ending up on a current affair for overquoting the elderly, drinking, and gambling. But there was one part of being a tradie that I glossed over in that video, because I was always planning to make a separate video on it, and that of course is the apprenticeship. So now, almost 1 year later, you're finally getting it. Anyway, that's enough waffle, let's get into the ultimate guide to being an apprentice. Now in Australia there's many different ways to print money. Some of the more popular ones include welfare fraud, illegally importing $2 packets of cigarettes from overseas and reselling them for $15, and my personal favourite, selling sight unseen roadworthies on Facebook Marketplace and then just blocking the bloke as soon as he pays you. But by far the most popular technique to print money in Australia has to be being a tradesman. But before you can go around making 50 grand a year just on call out fees alone, you have to do something called an apprenticeship. Now if you Google the definition of apprenticeship, this is what it comes up with. But in Australia, it has an entirely different definition. The word apprenticeship in Australia means 4 years of borderline slave labour while being nailed to the floor, hung from the ceiling, used as a human hand towel, and spending the majority of your 8 or more hour long days with the prestigious title of broom technician. And all that fun stuff is combined with an hourly rate starting at about $13 an hour. Now just for context, at age 15, I was making more money an hour to hide in the fridge and eat chicken nuggets at McDonald's than these 18 to 19-year-olds are making an hour playing the important role of the human bobcat. Now the most important part of any apprenticeship has to be the apprentice pranks. Now while they do call these pranks, what they actually are is a mix of bullying, light torture, and a whole bunch of sending people to Bunnings to look for a left-handed screwdriver. Now while there is endless possibilities for apprentice pranks, the most popular and by far the most work-safe friendly has to be sending the apprentice to Bunnings to look for made-up tools. Some of these common tools that you send the apprentice to look for include the left-handed screwdriver, the right-handed hammer, blinker fluid, muffler bearings, sparks for the angle grinder, bubbles for the level, and my personal favourite, the long wait. Now while this is nothing but a waste of the apprentice's time, if you send him to Mitre 10 to look for a long wait, and that wait ends up being 3 hours long, all I can say is don't hate the player, hate the game. Once the apprentice realises that there's no such thing as a long wait or a left-handed screwdriver, if you're lucky he might return to the job site. And that's where the real work begins. Now on any job site there's a hierarchy, but of course all the interesting jobs are given to the first year. As soon as the first year apprentice passes their wheelbarrow test, they're ready for the big jobs. Now these jobs are very important, things such as catching sparks from the angle grinder so that you don't have to go back to Bunnings to get more later. The first year apprentice is also usually in charge of properly disposing of aerosol paint cans, but their most important job of them all has to be hiding from the boss and scrolling on TikTok so that they don't have to dig holes. But you'll need to be careful though, because if your boss catches you bludging and doing nothing, you might just get sent back to Bunnings. An important part of being an apprentice is having your own work vehicle. As you know, qualified tradesmen can spend up to hundreds of thousands of dollars just on their work vehicles. But you see, with apprentices there are many different options. You see, unlike the qualified tradesmen, the apprentices haven't yet unlocked the ability to print money. And after the taxman steals his share of your $13 an hour, you're only left with about $400 a week to spend on everything that you need. And that leaves us with 3 distinct categories when it comes to an apprentice vehicle. First of which is what I like to call the smart apprentice. This is the apprentice who saves up their wages from a few weeks and spends it on a cheap piece of shit. Something like an old Toyota Corolla, Honda Jazz, Suzuki Swift, VY Commodore, or of course the almighty AU Falcon. Now these vehicles may be cheap and not much to look at, besides the AU Falcon of course, but you guys wouldn't believe me if I told you how many roof tiles you can fit in the back of a Toyota Corolla when you fold the back seats down. These vehicles are cheap to buy, cheap to fix and maintain, and when the brakes eventually give out thanks to the 2.5 tons of quick mix cement in the boot and you end up in someone's swimming pool, they're just as cheap to replace. And that brings us onto our next category, the one that I like to call the bank's wet dream. This is the apprentice who's calculated that he earns $400 a week after tax. And that of course means that he has $400 a week to pay off a car loan. You see, instead of jumping on Facebook Marketplace and buying the cheapest, most clapped out Camry money can buy, these guys walk into their local Toyota dealership, straight to the Hilux section, and loan a brand spanker SR5 for $350 a week at only 20% interest. This leaves them with $50 a week profit to spend on diesel at $2 a litre, and then whatever's left over, they reinvest into the Sportsbet account. And depending on how lucky they are on Sportsbet, they either eat 2-minute noodles or whatever they can scrape out of the bin. Now our third and final category of apprentice has to be the daddy's money apprentice. This apprentice is just like the bank's wet dream, minus all the debt. This is the kind of guy you see with a brand new 79 series on red P plates with a $50,000 canopy and another 30 grand with a brand new tools in the back. For the daddy's money apprentice, Sportsbet isn't a lifeline, it's just a hobby. And due to the fact that they don't have any bills to pay with their $400 a week, they have the privilege of getting a Zinger box for lunch every day of the week. But let me cast your mind back to 15 seconds ago when I mentioned tools. You see, while an apprentice vehicle is one of the most important parts of the apprenticeship, the most important part by far is the tools. Now just like the apprenticeship vehicle, there's also 3 different tiers. There's the smart apprentice who goes to Facebook Marketplace and cash converters and gets all the stolen tools for dirt cheap. And then of course is the bank's wet dream who goes out and gets another loan just so he can get brand new tools. And of course, as I just mentioned, the daddy's money apprentice whose dad pays for it all. But there's a secret 4th category to the power tool circle of life. You see, somebody has to go out and get the tools to sell at cash converters and on Facebook Marketplace in the first place. And that of course is the junkie. The junkie will go around to any work ute that looks like it might have a power tool in it, smash the window and steal everything they can get their hands on. And then of course make a beeline to either cash converters or Facebook Marketplace where they sell them for about a quarter of the recommended retail price so they can fill up the tank on the glass Harley. And then of course the smart apprentice comes in and buys them, and then the cycle repeats itself. Alright, now that you're clued up on the power tools circle of life, we've got one last thing we've got to get into before we wrap up this video, and that of course is TAFE. Now the word TAFE stands for something, but unfortunately for you guys, I can't be bothered googling it. TAFE is basically just another word for trade school, and you're supposed to go there to learn how to hammer wood or something. But everyone knows that the most important part of TAFE is showing off your finance 4-wheel drive in the TAFE car park. For 1 week in every month, every apprentice has to go to TAFE, and for those 5 days of every month, it's a competition. Now there's 2 competitions in the TAFE car park. The first of which is obviously the crippling debt competition, and the second one is the Stevie Wonder Award for who can park the worst but get the most flex. Unlike watching my videos, TAFE is pretty much just a waste of time and money. So on that note, it's time to end. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, comment and share if you'd like to hear more teachings from the prophet of Yorak Hunt. And if you enjoyed this video so much that you watched it all the way till the end, make sure to comment
what the Sigma?
to let me know.